Hey, what's up? What is going on? Welcome to another episode of Hey Mark, the podcast where I, Mark, get to have open and authentic conversations about things like mental health and self-development. And the reason I started this podcast is just because I wanted to try and help alleviate some of the suffering that's happening out there in silence. Some of the people that are out there maybe thinking, nobody else feels the way I feel. Nobody else thinks the way I think. Nobody else has gone through what I'm going through or lives the life that I live. And, I feel like all of us kind of feel like that and resonate with that kind of message sometimes. And I think that that's why it's important to have these kind of conversations and chats, and why I think it's important to, build these types of communities so that we can just have these conversations and realistically just discuss whatever it is that's on our mind, no matter how fucked up these ideas feel, so that we just understand that no matter what it is that you are going through, first off, you're not alone. And second of all, life can and will get better for you. And so if that sounds like something that you're down for, if you like that kind of a message, then this probably will be a podcast that you enjoy. If you don't like that message, if you're not down for that shit, you might want to listen to something else, because that's pretty much all I think about and talk about. So that being said, if this is your first time listening to the show, thank you so much for joining us. That's the kind of stuff you can expect. Sometimes you'll hear me rant, which is what you're going to hear today. And sometimes you're going to hear me interview other people that typically do cooler things than I do, and they're usually smarter than I am, and they can say things that I could never say. And so if that's what you're expecting today, unfortunately, I don't have that for you, but I will coming up. So thank you so much for tuning into that. If you like the interviews, stay tuned. We're going to have some wicked interviews coming through. If you like just hearing me rant and try and figure out my own thoughts and basically provide therapy for myself, then you're probably going to like this episode. So either way, if you guys enjoy this kind of content, then just share it with somebody that maybe needs to hear it, or yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, I just want to kind of just check in with you guys, see how you're doing. Maybe check in with yourself right now. Ask yourself how you're doing. If it's the morning time, maybe think about what could make this a good day. Maybe think about, your last couple days. Maybe it's not morning time for you. Maybe it's afternoon or evening. Maybe you could reflect on your past day. Or maybe you can just sit there and ask yourself, regardless of how today went or yesterday went or how this last week went, like, how am I doing? Like, check in with yourself and just try and see, check your bearings, see where you're at in life. But yeah, if it is a morning for you, I hope you're about to have a wicked day. I hope you have a good day planned for yourself. If you don't, you could maybe take this time to plan that out. If it's evening time, I hope you had a good day. I really do. For me right now, I think it's just after 12 o'clock. It's like 12:25, and had a pretty solid morning. I recently just did my first jiu-jitsu competition yesterday, which was pretty nerve-wracking, and it was a wicked experience. I did, kind of better than I thought I did in some areas, and then there was other areas where, I was like, man, I should have been smarter about this. I should have been smarter about that. I don't know if I've posted, by the time this episode comes out, I don't know if I've posted the results yet. I had a bit of footage, so I'm going to kind of clip it together and make a couple posts for you guys, because there was actually a lot of, even though this was kind of like a physical competition, obviously, like literally, there was a lot of mental battles as well. And not just for myself, for my peers. And I think I'm going to try and clip together some footage for you guys to share, a little bit of perspective in terms of how physical challenges can help develop us mentally, because that was a pretty wicked day for me. So after that, what did I do? I went out for, pizza, actually. I haven't had pizza in months, and it felt like I just hadn't had. So I went out for pizza with my parents and my girlfriend after, and we got to chatting, which kind of inspired a couple of conversations I've had recently, and it's a conversation I'm going to discuss today with you guys, but we'll get to that in a bit. After we did that, came home, did some grocery shopping, did a little bit, got back to work, basically, got back to the grind. And then, this morning we woke up and we did a little Zoom call, mental health Zoom call, did check-ins with everybody as well, and then just kind of chatted about, again, kind of what we're going to chat about today. And that leads me to where we're at right now, where I just sat down and wanted to chat with you guys. So that's what I've been up to the last couple of days. And yeah, maybe you're interested in that, maybe you're not. But anyways, when I went for lunch with my parents and my girlfriend, we went out for pizza, right? And obviously that's a cheat meal. Like, it's not the healthiest fucking meal to just go out and have, like, we even had like a milkshake. We had like a brownie milkshake and a pizza. I ended up eating a whole pizza and like half a milkshake. So obviously quite a lot of self-indulgence. And that's what I wanted to chat about today. And so the reason I want to chat about that is because I feel like a lot of the time, in regards to our mental health, in regards to our self-development, we hear a lot about self-care, self-love, self-affection, whatever fucking words you want to use for that. I don't know how you label that, but I wanted to jump into that today because I find a lot of the time we conflate a lot of the things that, maybe are categorized or should be categorized as like self-indulgences, a lot of the time are thought of as self-care. And I want to just discuss a little bit of the dangers behind thinking that way. And then I'm going to just kind of try and discuss like my perspective in terms of differentiating the two. So, hold up. I'm going to take a little sip of my coffee real quick. If you don't like iced coffee on a sunny day, I don't know what the fuck to tell you, but I love that iced coffee. Anyways, so first off, I want to talk about like a lot of people, they talk about, maybe they got like a lot of the time, like some of my friends that are women, they, and my girlfriend and my mom, like, we hear people talk about, I went and got my hair done. I went and got my nails done. Or in my example of what I did yesterday, like I went and had pizza. I went and had milkshakes. I ended up even like watching some Netflix last night with my girlfriend and just like having like a little bit of hot chocolate. And so we had all these indulgences. And a lot of the time people refer to those things as self-care. And it seems kind of intuitive, because it's like, well, what would caring for myself look like? And it would be like, well, obviously, making myself happier or making myself better is maybe like the first couple of things you think of. And then you think, well, when I think of, buying myself a new outfit or eating a bunch of pizza or, maybe drinking a bottle of booze with your buddies, partying, maybe smoking a lot of joints. I don't know what it is, like whatever you consider self-care, like smoking a joint and listening to a fucking Pink Floyd album, whatever it could be. We think of those things and we're like, yeah, those things make me feel good. It's pleasurable. So obviously it's self-care. But that's where the slippery slope starts to come. Because I think a lot of the time we conflate, things make me feel good, therefore they must be self-care. And I think that that's where the misunderstanding happens, because a lot of those things are actually just self-indulgences. And I want to start off by saying, like, I don't think it's wrong to indulge. I think that that's part of the pleasure of working your fucking ass off. That's the point of working so hard, is that so when it's appropriate, you can indulge. You have the freedom to indulge because you have the discipline to not let your life get chaotic when you do indulge, right? And that's kind of the trick behind the whole thing. And so I wanted to talk about first, like I said, it was a slippery slope to think this way. And what I mean by that is like the perspective of indulgences being self-care, because that essentially will building block itself or snowball effect itself into basically addiction. When we hear about people that have addictive personalities, it doesn't always have to be substance abuse. It could be, like video game addictions. It could be Netflix addictions. It could be like social media addictions, which is probably prevalent for fucking 90% of the people listening to this, and, myself included. We think of, okay, if doing things that makes me feel good equals self-care, then I could just indulge in those things all day and I'll just be happy, right? But obviously we know the answer is no. So what is the difference? Right? Like a lot of the times I've been thinking about that. And we even talked about this on an episode recently about, you don't burn out from doing too much. You burn out from not doing enough of the essentials. And I think that when you separate the two, like what does self-care look like? It's not things that make you feel better in the moment. It's things that enhance the things that make you feel good. And so when you're doing things like self-care, what would we consider to be like self-care? Well, I guess the question, because I'm just fucking talking to myself, is what would I consider to be self-care? And you guys can listen to that and think it's true and think, hey, Mark's got a point. Or maybe you listen to this and you're like, fuck, this guy's an idiot. But what do I consider to be self-care is like, having an honest, vulnerable conversation with a loved one. That's self-care. It's difficult. It's hard. And and that's one of the things you're going to notice. I'm going to say there's a common theme about things with self-care. So I'll list a couple others and then we'll pick apart the common theme. What else would be self-care? I don't know, maybe scheduling a yoga class for yourself, maybe scheduling a counseling session, maybe, providing a counseling session for others in the form of just having those vulnerable conversations. Like maybe you could counsel each other. Other versions of self-care would be like eating food that, you're not considering it for the flavor or the dopamine rush or the taste. Obviously, those things are important. We can get to that in a bit, but eating food that's going to give you the nutrients you need. Eating the food that's going to help you get to your goals. Eating food that isn't going to mess with your sleep right before bed. Those are self-care. Like self-care would be even just going to bed on time or sleeping 8 hours. Now, I want you to notice a common theme of all these things. These things that we consider to be, or I consider to be self-care, aren't fucking always fun to do. They're not the things that make you feel good in the moment. Unless, I don't know, maybe you enjoy some of these things. Like for me, I enjoy a workout, so considering that self-care, that's a fun thing for me to do. But these behaviors of self-care aren't always going to come with a fucking side of instant gratification, like you're ordering it off a fucking Happy Meal fucking menu. Like it's like you're not always going to get that instant gratification from things that are considered to be self-care. For me, there's certain things that I enjoy about self-care. I enjoy the workouts. I enjoy a good fucking meal. I enjoy those things. I enjoy, talking and having conversations and being vulnerable. I like that kind of stuff. Like that's I like challenging myself physically and using those things. But there's other sides of self-care that I don't fucking like to do. There's the things like journaling and reading and sticking to a meal plan to make sure that I get the nutrients I need and I'm not just indulging in fucking cheat meals every single day. There's a lot of things behind self-care that are little things, like even just brushing your teeth every day, that I fucking either, I'm like, fuck, I forgot to do that, or whatever it is. I'm like, there's so many times where we try and justify and prioritize our indulgences over our self-care. And then when we do that, we try and justify our indulgences as self-care, like they're one and the same. And I just wanted to kind of chat about that. And I also wanted to say, like, just to kind of close this all out, is like I don't think that there's anything wrong with being indulgent. I think that the danger only comes, well, obviously when you're indulging way too much, but also when you conflate the idea of self-indulgence to be self-care. And that's where it turns into like kind of a dopamine loop. So, if you guys are feeling like that, I just want you to understand that this isn't an attack on you. And if you're feeling attacked, then maybe you need to fucking look at your behaviors and what you consider to be self-care and self-indulgence. And maybe you're kind of fucking, conflating the two as well. And if that message kind of makes you feel uncomfortable and you feel like you have to justify your actions, you probably shouldn't be doing them. But that's not really up to me to decide. That's going to be on you. This is about my journey, and this is kind of the way that I've been treating my self-care and kind of looking at, indulging. And, it's really helped me kind of deal with like the guiltiness. Like sometimes I get that like feeling of guilt after I indulge. And so for me, this has kind of helped balance that out, because I know like, hey, if I'm going to be indulgent, then I just have to make sure that I take care of myself so that I can enjoy that indulgence guilt-free, feel okay about it, because I know I have A, the discipline to make sure that I can afford to indulge, and B, I know that if I do start to slip off the rails a little bit, I also have practiced these habits of self-care such that I'm not going to go completely off my rocker. And, it sounds like it could be a little unrealistic, but it's not too far-fetched to say that it is a slippery slope. If we indulge too much, then that's kind of how you get those periods in your life where it's been maybe like 5, 6, 7 months of indulgence, and all of a sudden, you've racked up $9,000 of debt, you've gained X amount of body fat, you maybe ruined a couple relationships because you've just been self-centered and indulgent. And instead of, filling up your cup so that you can pour out to others, you've just been just kind of guzzling it all down and not thinking about the future. And so just in terms of longevity and, creating happiness that's going to last not just a minute or a day or whatever it could be, but creating happiness that can be, so that the happiness can be created on a daily basis, regardless of the situations, regardless of, hey, I didn't get to indulge for a couple weeks, but I'm still feeling good, right? And so maybe, like I said, I'm not trying to make you feel guilt or shame. In fact, I'm trying to alleviate that. And I know that when you are starting new self-care habits, it can be rather difficult. In fact, I was thinking about the other day how difficult it is to just create new habits. And I was thinking about the guilt that we have around that. I started by literally thinking about, we'll try this little experiment. This is the way that I kind of, I work really well off analogies and physical representations, and just kind of helps me understand concepts better. But this is a way that I made my concept up to kind of help me understand how difficult it can be to create new habits. So I didn't have that guilty or that kind of bad feeling whenever I couldn't keep up with the new habits I was trying to make. And so what I ended up doing was, you ever fold your hands like this? I don't know. For those of you watching, it's pretty easy to see, but if you're just listening, when you clasp your hands together and just kind of fold your fingers over the other knuckles and your thumbs kind of cross over each other, right? Like if you were to just kind of prayer and then fold your hands, your fingers down, kind of make your two hands one big fist. I don't know if that, explains perfectly what I'm saying, but when you do that, and maybe you have to watch the video for this one, but I hope I just explained that well enough. But when you clasp your hands together, right? Have you ever tried switching the hand that goes on top? Switching so that maybe at first when you do it, for me, naturally, my left thumb goes on top. But then try and do the other way so that I'm doing it so that I reverse my fingers and my right thumb goes on top. And that feels really unnatural and uncomfortable for me. And then if you stop doing that, we sit here and we chat for another couple minutes. We talk about, these self-care, self-indulgence things. And, maybe we think about the weekend that we just had or the week that's coming ahead. We sit here and chat about, your favorite podcast host or the coolest, fucking thing you saw recently, or a funny joke that maybe a comedian told, or whatever things that you think about, or when your mind races or whatever it could be. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, hold up, wait. And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, clasp your hands together. And you go to do it, you probably naturally do the way that you naturally did before. You probably didn't go back to the one that I told you to do the second time, because it's so difficult to create those new habits. See, our brain creates these kind of neurological pathways that, when you get told to do something, you just do it the same way that you've always done it. And that's a good thing, because automating, small monotonous tasks like that makes our life such that we can enjoy the big things, right? But just coming back to, maybe you are starting a new habit. Maybe you are trying to create a new neurological pathway. I want to remind you of that analogy of clasping your hands the opposite way, and how difficult it is to just kind of burn that into you. And obviously once you do it a couple times, maybe you're fucking just going back and forth right now and it's hey, this is a piece of cake. That's because it's fresh on your mind. But maybe if you fucking set a reminder to listen to this episode again tomorrow and you try this experiment out, see if it's as fresh tomorrow or the next day. Or if you were to listen to this in a year from now after forgetting about it, I bet you'd have the exact same result. Because the more often we do these things and the more frequently we do these things, then the habit becomes easier. But when it's brand new, it's difficult, it's easy to forget about. And you might even ask yourself, why the fuck am I even doing this in the first place? Why am I even doing this? And then you have to ask yourself, well, why did I want to start? And so that was just kind of an analogy that I was using for myself to help me understand, it is difficult to start new habits. And it is kind of, if you are trying to start these new self-care habits, don't feel bad if you're struggling with it. It's so fucking hard to start these new habits. Just understand that, the more frequently you do it, the more you think about it, the more you remind yourself about it, the more it will become exactly what it is we're talking about, a habit. And so think about, to circle back to what we were talking about in the beginning, think about some of the things that you've been doing right, in the last couple days, couple weeks, couple months, couple years, whatever it could be, your behaviors, the things that you do on a daily basis, and categorize them between self-care and self-indulgence, and see what you're actually doing. Are you indulging most of the time, or are you taking care of yourself all the time? And maybe you need to indulge a little bit more, because I know people, and even I've had periods in my life like that where, all of the stuff I'm doing is self-care and I'm never indulging, which is, I think it got me through a lot of tough times in my life, but it is important to sometimes slow down to speed up, right? So that's all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope that you are trying to create new habits for yourself, or trying to think about creating new habits, or just trying to think at all. Just try and think, man. I don't know. I hope that you guys got some enjoyment out of this, a new perspective, a new way to look at your life, or maybe I just kind of made you feel attacked. But if that's the case, you probably need to reflect on your own life. Other than that, that's all I got going on today. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for listening to this little rant. And for those of you that still listen to this, you make me feel less crazy for talking into my phone. So thank you. This was kind of, like I said, inspired me, not just by talking to my parents and my girlfriend and, all that. It's also inspired me, what has inspired me is that the group that I have going on, the group that we have revolving around mental health and self-development. It's on Telegram. We have these daily conversations, but this was a conversation that we had on Zoom because we have weekly Zoom calls. We meet up for that. So if that sounds like a kind of like a support group or a community that you'd like to be a part of, reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram will be at the bottom of the screen here for those of you watching this video. If you're just listening to the podcast version, you're more like me, to be honest, so that's cool. But just share the show, help me grow. It'll be my Instagram is at Mark D. Henriksen. And other than that, yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast, rate it 5 stars, leave a review. Tell me if I rocked your world or if I fucked it all up today. So that's all I got. Thank you so much. Much love and peace out.